Hello everyone, my name's Andrew Wilson. This is my channel. Welcome if you haven't watched any of the videos before. If you have, welcome back. I have posted quite a few videos since the start of COVID, and the reason for that was because I was in isolation. So what I've been doing is a number of things over my time being in lockdown, such as transitioning from being on a ketogenic diet to a low-fat plant-based whole food diet. So let's talk about continual glucose monitoring, CGMs. Now I've been on the Medtronic 640G insulin pump for about 4 years, and throughout that time I've self-funded the Medtronic Enlite sensor. And without a shadow of a doubt, I think the CGM and the sensors that are available on the market at the moment are the biggest game changer for anyone who's diabetic and needs to track their blood sugars. So it's of paramount importance to have what I consider to be the best, the most accurate, the most reliable sensor out there. I've been talking to lots of people over the period of time that I've been in isolation due to COVID, and the community talks a lot about the different sensors that are available, and there are a number. The one that keeps on being mentioned is the Dexcom G6. What I decided to do was to self-fund the Dexcom G6, where that and the Enlite sensor at the same time, and compare not just the results, but also look at the cost, how long you're wearing them for, the apps or the information that is available from the sensors, and probably the most important, the accuracy. This video is all about that. So let's look at cost. And I think this is a really important one to look at because it's not cheap. That is the bottom line. It is very expensive to have a CGM in the UK. I know in the US you may get it funded and you may get it on your insurance. In the UK, the vast majority of CGMs are self-funded. A 1 month supply of the Medtronic Enlite sensors ordinarily costs £275, which is $350. If you subscribe to Medtronic and you become what they like to call a platinum subscriber, they reduce that cost to £210 per month, which is just less than $270. Now, what I would say is, it's interesting, the Medtronic subscription model. Effectively, you sign up for a 2-year period and you say, I will buy all of my sensors from Medtronic, and for that commitment, you get a discount of 23-24% from their original standard pricing. G6 is £159 per 1 month. Now, they also have a subscription model, so you sign up for 1 year. However, fundamentally, there is a difference between the two subscription models. And I thought I'd go into this because it's quite interesting that there is a bit of a hack here. Let's look at the simpler of the two first, the Dexcom G6. In order to get your sensors at £159 per month, you need to subscribe, as I said, and you will sign a direct debit mandate, and they will take £159 from your bank every month, and they will deliver your sensors every 3 months. So at the start you'll get 3 months, 3 months in, 6 months in, 9 months in, which makes sense. Very, very simple, 4 deliveries in a year. You don't need to get involved, and that's the beauty of it. They will automatically deliver it to you, so they make your life easier. And that costs you £159 per month, no matter what. And you are paying for the sensors and using those sensors. I'll get on to the customer service side in a little bit. Now, let's look at the Medtronic system. What I did was I called and I said, yes, I would like to be a platinum member. And they said, that's not a problem. Every time you call and order your box, it will now be at £210. And I said, that's fantastic. That's a £65 saving. Thank you very much. But what I have to do is I call every time I want to order a box. So at times where there has been issues with deliveries due to supply and demand, obviously, I've ordered 2 boxes. So at times what I find is I have some months where I'm paying £420 out in comparison to £210 ordinarily. And this is where there is a fundamental difference between the two. There is a hack with, this is the Medtronic Enlite sensor, okay? And this is what it looks like when it's attached to you or I. And here on the bottom is the transmitter. And it clips in like that, okay? The interesting thing is, and you can go online and check this, there are plenty of people out there that are, at the end of the 6 days that this transmitter works, they will take the transmitter off, leave the set in your body, and they will recharge the transmitter and then put it back on. They will click it back in and they will restart using this. Now, of course, Medtronic do not endorse this in any way, and neither would I. However, have I done it? Yes. Do I do it? Yes. And there's a very good reason for doing so, because it costs £210 a month. Okay? Any saving on that is a good thing. And yes, that the accuracy of your blood sugars in comparison to the sensor over time does deteriorate, okay? And what I find at times is it may last a day, it may last 2 days. There are people online that have made it last another 6 days and even reloaded it again. What does that mean? Bottom line, you can, and again I'm not endorsing it, but you can make these extend, okay? And therefore your cost is reduced. So that's the little hack that I had for you. For Medtronic, if you're watching this, what I would say is, why don't you just make it simpler for yourself, make these cheaper, and then set up a proper subscription model so that you deliver it automatically. You will get less phone calls, less people ordering, less hassle. You've got guaranteed income. Surely that's an easier business to run, I would have thought. How long do you wear each of the sensors? Let's look at that next. The Enlite sensor is a 6-day sensor, so it has to be replaced every 6 days. The pump will tell you when to do it, and that's fine. The Dexcom G6 is a 10-day sensor, so there's less changes. Neither of these hurt very much. The systems for putting them in are fine. I find the Dexcom is slightly less painful, and it seems to be a little bit more user-friendly, but in the grand scheme of things, they are much of a muchness. Let's look at reliability next. From all of the research that I've done about the Dexcom G6, the reliability appears to be very, very good. The interesting thing about the G6 is you do not need to calibrate it, which means you do not need to prick your finger to get the accuracy of the sensor. You can do that on the Dexcom. It does have that availability, but ordinarily you do not need to prick your finger at all. So for those of us with sore fingers after however many years or however many times of doing that, the Dexcom G6 in that way is incredible, and it's approved to do so. Whereas the Enlite sensor is not. So you have to calibrate that sensor. And they advise 3 to 4 times a day without active insulin and without food on board. Because you have to calibrate the Enlite sensor, I think that gives it more opportunity to go wrong. And my experience over the 4 years that I've been using it is they do go wrong at times. At times they're absolutely fine, and you'll go 3, 4, maybe 5, maybe 6 sensors and you won't have any issues, but then a sensor will go wrong. And you'll see that a little bit later when I talk about the accuracy of these sensors. It's frustrating. It is a frustrating occurrence that happens with the Enlite sensor, and I put that down to the fact that you have to calibrate it. Let's compare the information that each of these CGMs provide. So the continual glucose monitoring unit will update via the transmitters. It will update every 5 minutes, and they're exactly the same. The Dexcom works exactly the same as the Enlite sensor. However, they do have completely different ways of presenting the information. The Enlite sensor will present it directly on my pump, okay, the 640G, and I will see the graph and how my bloods are doing, and that I've found over the years has been really very useful to have. You get a bit addicted to looking at your pump, which can be a bit frustrating when you're at work. The Dexcom, however, has put the information on an app, okay? And that app is accessible at all times, and you can see it on your phone. If you've got a smartwatch, you can see it on there as well. I think that's a bit more user friendly. You know, on a day-to-day basis, we're always quite close to our phone. It's quite user friendly in that respect, and I don't have to keep on looking at the pump, which is attached to my waist generally, and certainly during meetings and other things like that, it's sometimes easier to look at your phone. The reports that that both Medtronic and Dexcom provide are really useful. With Medtronic, I have a CareLink account, and I can log on my computer and I can see my graphs. I can see they give you lots of different reports. This is the Medtronic CareLink app, desktop app actually, and you can look at 7, 14, 30 days or any selection of days you want, and you can run all of these reports. Okay, there is lots of information that it will give you. Let's click all of it. We'll go 10th to the 16th of August, and you can see here just how much information is on there. And bear in mind, this was only a week, so you've got your full graphs, you've got your average blood glucose, number of blood glucose readings in a day, overview of glucose measurements, overview of where the graphs have gone, seem to be going low quite often. And that is, you can see how complicated this is. I don't think this is very useful for most people. It gets awfully complicated. Whereas the Dexcom Clarity is here. If we look at the overview, and I've taken the just 7 days again, and we can see it's a bit more visual, a bit more user friendly, I would say. Average glucose, time in range, that's obviously a very important statistic. It's pretty user friendly, this stuff, and I quite like the fact that they make it just very easy to look at. So I quite like the Dexcom Clarity. If I were to compare the two, I prefer the Clarity information. Let's look at accuracy. This is probably the most important factor, and what everyone wants. You want the most accurate CGM as possible. So what I did was I wore both of the sensors at the same time, as I've explained, and I compared the readings. Unfortunately, what happened the first time I tried to do this is the Enlite sensor actually went wrong, and it didn't calibrate a couple of times, so I waited, and it didn't calibrate again, so I waited. It then told me that the sensor was updating, do not calibrate. It then went wrong and told me that the sensor needed replacing. Unfortunately, 2 days later, after I'd replaced that sensor, the same thing happened with the second sensor. Now, that hasn't happened to me before. It just seemed to be a coincidence. What I would lead on to before I get to the accuracy is the customer service. Both Medtronic and Dexcom's customer service is excellent. I mean, they are superb at this. When you call them and you tell them there's a problem, they will send you the sensors out, and they will send them to you pretty damn quickly. And I've got to admit, I've never had an issue with Medtronic since I've been with them since the start. They are excellent at getting new sensors out to you. Yes, it's a bit frustrating when things go wrong. Yes, it's a bit frustrating having to explain it to people. But look, it's not a perfect world. I'm sure this happens to lots of people. All I can do is praise both Medtronic and Dexcom for their customer service. Dexcom, I haven't had to call you because none of your sensors have gone wrong, but I've only been wearing them for about 4 or 5 weeks. When I have called you to talk to you about the Dexcom, you've been excellent as well. I fully support both of the companies and how useful and how helpful their customer service is. In order to compare the accuracy of the Enlite sensor to the Dexcom G6, what I've done is compiled a Excel spreadsheet looking at all of the information from my blood test results and what was on the sensors at the time. There's a lot of information on there, and there's a lot of individual figures. I will explain each of them, but at the end there's a bit of a summary, okay? So bear with me. Now, before we look at the individual figures, what I wanted to talk to you about is something called the MARD scale. Now, the MARD scale is recognised as how accurate the CGM is in comparison to finger stick testing. The Dexcom is known to be very, very good at the extremities. So it's supposed to be very accurate at the highs and the lows in comparison to other models that are out there. And that includes the Medtronic. That is something that I did keep an eye on while I was doing this, and I will show you in there. But look, overall, the only thing that I'm really concerned about, and I'm sure you're concerned about, is which one is accurate, which one isn't accurate, where do we actually sit? So let's have a look. This is the manner in which I've decided to track the information. We've got time of day, we've got finger prick test. So this is the gold standard. This is what everyone wants the CGM to be as accurate as possible and as close as possible to. This was my Dexcom readings. This was my Enlite readings. At the start here, it was just in calibration. So these are the Enlite readings. These columns are how far out the readings were and the percentage of how far out those readings were. All sensors are known to not be very accurate on day one. I know that for a fact with the Enlite sensor, and what I found out on the Dexcom was it's almost exactly the same. It's not as accurate on day one. You can see those percentages out. If we look at day two, in day two, okay, there's only 6 that were taken, but look at the percentages. So much better than day one, aren't they? Much, much better. Day 3. And this was the interesting reading. Had a high blood glucose on day 3, halfway through the day. And you could see that the Dexcom was only 5% out, but the Medtronic Enlite sensor was 10% out. Now, again, I refer you back to the MARD system. Now, MARD stands for the mean absolute relative difference. And the Dexcom is known to be accurate at the higher blood glucose levels, so hyperglycemic, and is also known to be accurate at the lower blood glucose readings, which is hypoglycemic. I will show you some of the lower ones, but you can see that is more accurate. 5%, that's pretty damn good. Then we look at Thursday. Percentages aren't too bad. There are some strange ones here and there that just arise. And here's the hypoglycemic. 2.3, 2.5, 9% out, whereas the Medtronic was 22% out. That's pretty good, isn't it? It's good to see. And for those of you that are worried about having high blood glucose, and I know I really don't like having high blood glucose, I like to know that it's accurate. So that gave me some confidence with that. For those of you that are really concerned with going low and having low blood glucose, actually that's pretty damn good as well. You want it as accurate as possible in those situations to give you a good gauge of when that's going to happen. There's day 6. Okay, so we are at the end of day 6. What I've done here is given you an overview of the Dexcom and the Medtronic. Here's day 1 to 6, the total percentage out on each of the days, the number of readings, and the daily average percent out. The Dexcom's pretty accurate, you know. I mean, 7%, 8%, it's quite consistent across the following 5 days. Quite bad on day 1. Whereas the Medtronic, yeah, not as bad as the Dexcom on day 1, but again, not too bad, not far off of the daily average count of the Dexcom. The final piece of the puzzle is the total percentage out, 443 and 551, the total number of readings, and the percentages, 10.3% and 13%. Now, as I sit here, I think 10%, oh, I don't like that, or 13%, I don't like the fact it's 13% out. But in the grand scheme of things, mostly, we're not far off. We really are not far off. The only issue arises, I would say, for me, who has more lows than highs, the only issue arises if it's 10% out and it's the difference between 5 and 5.5 or 4 and 4.5. It might be the difference between me taking some glucose. Overall, I'm pretty happy with those readings. So that is the final overview of that 1 week, and I realise it's just 1 week and it has its limitations, but that's where we sit. So which side of the fence do I sit? I've been using the Enlite sensor for 4 years. I have had frustrations. I've had lots of frustrations with it, with the calibration and the fact I still have to prick my finger 3 or 4 times a day, and sometimes because I don't trust it at times, I will check my blood sugar levels a bit more. But for me, it has been a massive game changer, you know, to give me confidence to go to sleep overnight, and the fact that the pump will switch off because of the CGM. It will stop the basal insulin going in. That is a big plus in my book, a huge plus, and it gave me some confidence to actually fall asleep. I was concerned about doing so for a while, and I'm sure there are other people that were in that position. But now that I have better control of my blood sugars, which side would I sit? I think the Dexcom is the better of the two. I think it is, not only is it cheaper without the hack, okay, not only is it cheaper to run, I like their online system. I particularly like the Dexcom Clarity app and the fact you can have it on your phone or your smartwatch. I also love the fact that a number of your family members can also view how your bloods are doing throughout the day by connecting up to the Clarity app if you so wish. I think that is really progressive, and certainly for people who are parents of children with diabetes, that's a must. I know in the US they advocate it all the time, but in the UK, I think if you haven't come across that, the Clarity app, and you having access to your kids' blood sugars throughout the day, yeah, it might cause you a few problems, but it's a fantastic bit of kit. So that is where I sit. You know, overall, I think I would prefer the Dexcom out of the two. It is consistent, it's accurate. You don't have to prick your finger. I think that's amazing. I think that is the future of diabetes and control. So I'll leave it there. I hope you found this valuable. I found it really useful to track it in that way. I'll put a link below to the Excel spreadsheet which shows the full blood glucose analysis. Feel free to download that. You can use the spreadsheet yourselves if you wanted to. If you like this video, please give me obviously a thumbs up. Let me know any comments that you have. That would be great to get some comments, and I'll respond to those. And of course, if you haven't already, click on that subscribe button below. I'll be bringing out some more videos in time, and hopefully you'll get some value from those as well, guys. Okay, look after yourselves, and if you are considering a CGM, absolutely go for it. Okay, take care.